Hey, hi guys, this is Akash Sharma. So we'll be starting the stream at 10 p.m. I'm just not sure if anybody has joined so far or not. We'll just monitor that. In case you have joined, just drop in to say hi. We'll formally be starting the session at 10. I'm just doing a little bit of testing till then. Is it coming now, Dipanshu? Okay, there's usually some kind of a small lag when it with YouTube, uh, about 30 seconds. So if you are watching the stream, you'll probably get a little bit of delayed response than me, but it should come. Just confirm if you are able to get it. And when I do this like screen sharing, you are able to see this, right? Okay, I hope you are able to see this. Just gonna push my camera a little further back so that. Yep. Hey Atharv, hello, how are you? Thanks for joining in. So we'll be starting this shortly. Just bear with me for probably 5-7 minutes. Just want to get more people on the call. Till then, you can drop in your questions if you have any kind of expectations. If you have any questions that you want to talk about, right? We'll be taking questions, and if you want to join the stream, feel free to say that. All right. So there's two people. I still don't know how to see this live. I'm probably just going to check this out on how it looks on YouTube. Just allow me a second. I'm just trying to see this on my mobile device because I've never done a live stream. This is my first one. Okay. Okay, your channel. Oh, there are like 10 people. Oh, great. Can everybody just confirm in the chat? Oh, Athar, we are new to cloud. Should I watch this studio video? You can watch this video. So I'll be starting from very basics. You're not going to get too deep or confused about things. Specifically, next week, I'm going to cover a whole lot of cloud, which is just a session focused on cloud. So you can attend this to understand how a cloud is used, which is the most popular one right now, AWS cloud. And then next week, we'll explain you how cloud services work, how infrastructure works, and things like that. So feel free to sit out and attend the session, ask questions if you don't understand. And we can even connect later to kind of explain and the concepts to you. All right. So how many people there are? Can we just get a good head count somehow? In case Dipanshu you're there, maybe if you can tell me how many people there are in the chat or in the stream, so we can maybe start early. Atharva, have you created a AWS account? 9 watching. All right, great. That's good. Okay, so I'm gonna assume that everybody has created AWS account. Whomsoever has not, I will quickly do an overview of that too, so that you don't feel left out. And we'll maybe start with that, how to create an AWS account. All right, so you can follow along, Atharva, and you should be able to follow through. All right, is everybody able to see my screen? So we'll go to AWS Cloud and just try to, not SageMaker, just AWS. And this is AWS. A quick overview about AWS. AWS is one of the leading cloud providers in the world. It provides you all the infrastructure services that you need to get started to solve any business solution. What I mean by that is there's three categories. For instance, there's infrastructure as a service, where AWS will provide you raw infrastructure, things like machines, storage, databases. Then the second tier is platform as a services, where it will provide you ready to use setup, which will just allow you to bring your data, bring your software, bring your application, bring your code, and just not worry about infrastructure. So that's PaaS. And the third is SaaS, which is software as a service, where you just bring a problem, bring your data, and they have ready to use solution, things like AutoML, things like API, Vision APIs, and all that. So that's what AWS is about, and we'll next week we are going to do a much more deep dive session. So we will get started now. What you simply need to do is click on get started. You need to fill this up. It's just going to take a couple of minutes for you, for example, to fill this up, and you should be able to have an account created for yourself. It's a 5-step process. They're going to ask you some card information and things like that. However, rest assured, they are not going to charge your card for any money. It is free. You have a very extensive free tier, which I'll quickly show you, which is an extremely generic free tier, if I must say. So it offers 12 month of services, and some of the services are even free after that. And you will get a lot of listings here. For example, 750 hours of T2 or T3 micro instances are free. If you want to get for Windows instances, you can also get that. S3 buckets, 5 GB of free space is free. You have a small database, which is RDS, that's for free. You can use a DynamoDB, which is a NoSQL 25 GB, that's available for free in free tier. You can use Sagemaker, which is what we are going to be talking about today, free for almost 2 months. And it allows you 250 hours of high compute infrastructure, machines as large as 8 GB or sometimes even 16 GB. And then you have all sorts of other operations like Lambda, SNS, search, and the list goes on and on. It's an extensive list, right? You can just check out their videos on what sort of options are available as free tier, and that should help you get very comfortable from a pricing standpoint. It's relatively, even after that, it's relatively cheap. For instance, if you rely on certain strategies like spot instance, which is what we'll talk about today, you'll be able to very quickly reduce the overall cost of your setup. All right. So we'll move over. Now, the way to end up with AWS is just type console.aws and it will take you in this kind of a setup. It will showcase you the landing page for AWS, which is just a second, which is effectively your home. This is your dashboard. It allows you access to all the services. For example, you can search for a service here. It's going to list out all the services like EC2, or you can search for services like Kubernetes. It will give you Kubernetes, or you can have S3 buckets, which will give you S3 buckets. And there's over 200 or so services in AWS. I don't really remember them. I doubt anybody does. On the bottom, they're going to give you some health related information, which is about what are the if you have any changes coming up, any service is going to have a downtime and things like that. Then you're going to have a cost. There is practically no cost incurred for my account so far, even though I've been using it for over a month. So you can understand that it's relatively free. And then you have a lot of training and tutorials at the bottom to get started. So it's relatively very easy and straightforward out of the box. All right. Now I'll quickly switch over to the session objectives that we have for today. Now, what we're going to be talking about is a generic overview, which is this. Then we'll talk about the interface with respect to machine learning services and AWS SageMaker. We are going to look at the different features AWS SageMaker has. We will talk about pricing. We will look at certain demos and serving options in the next stream, because that's going to cover a very long time. We'll be parallelly taking question and answer, and these two areas where I'll show you how to quickly build a machine learning model and deploy and get predictions or just recommendations using AWS Canvas. And also we'll be showing you how to use spot instances using AWS SageMaker Studio. Now, spot instances are very focused towards price. So they spot instance imply that these instances are, let's say, just free sitting around and non-reserved infrastructure pieces. The plus point is they are relatively cheap. The downside is they can go down. Well, they are unpredictable. They can go down anytime. So that's what AWS spot instances are, and this is what we're gonna loosely be covering today. All right. Let me just switch over. Okay. So we'll get into the SageMaker interface now. Are there any questions? Let me just quickly check. Okay. In case there are any questions, people, please keep throwing them in the chat box. I'll probably take it up and address it over a period of time in a consolidated way. So this is AWS SageMaker interface. Now, SageMaker is the product with AWS, which effectively tells and allows us people to do the whole machine learning lifecycle, which is it will allow you to build, deploy, train, label, create endpoints, and basically take care of the entire life cycle of it. To quickly touch upon it, what we will do is I'm gonna just go over to my notebook. So this is the whole life cycle of AWS SageMaker, and what I've just done is I've just annotated them before. So it will allow you to label, you can build, you can train, tune, and deploy your machine learning models. All right, and this is the overall life cycle that you can work with on AWS SageMaker. So the first thing you need to do is fetch the data, and the way it allows you to fetch the data is this multitude of options. There are ready to use connectors for S3 buckets. We'll quickly show an example. If you have data sitting in Redshift or RDS, that's relatively easy too. You can fetch them. You can clean them. There's a very nice ETL tool called AWS Glue, or you can just clean it using raw Python in your code in your notebooks. And then you can prepare and save them in a feature store kind of a setup, right? Then comes the machine learning training, evaluation, deployment, and monitoring. And there are different dedicated services for each of them. And we'll talk about that list extensively now. So there's a whole mind map which I have been able to find, and this is not mine. This is probably from a person who's very much more active than me in the AWS community. So this is a mind map which is created by Julian Simon. You can find this on Git. It is extremely up to date, and it is extremely detailed also. Now what we're going to be doing is we will just scout through this mind map, and then we will quickly talk about how that looks in the interface. So for instance, if you want to prepare data set, you have lots of services. You have AWS Ground Truth, you have Data Wrangler, you have a feature store if you want to save the data, and you have a processing service as well, which allows you to work with the data. Then if you want to build a model, there are a couple of options. If you want to do auto ML or just a visual way of doing an auto ML, which is still evolving, you can have AWS Canvas, SageMaker Canvas, which is something we'll look today. Or you could be having AWS Autopilot. Now, Autopilot will talk about, Autopilot is again another service which will do a lot of auto ML for you out of the box. Then if you want to train the model, right, there's all sorts of options available inside SageMaker itself, SageMaker Studio, which will allow you to do model parallelism, do experiments, save the data, and debuggers. And then towards the left-hand side, there's all options for making sure that whatever you have labeled, created the data, and kind of done the modeling. On the left-hand side, you have all kinds of options to take them to production or just realize that use case eventually. So the first thing is deploy a model, which can be done by endpoints. There's serverless inferencing, there's auto scaling, all of those. There's multitude of services. You don't need to remember all of them, but it's a good idea for you to check about this mind map a little later, and I'll provide the link in the description once the stream is over. All right. Then what we have is You have a lot of monitoring services. For example, you want to understand if there are any quality issues in your model, you want to measure data drift, you want to understand predicted versus actuals. There are model monitoring services inside SageMaker which enable you to do that. Then if you want to optimize your process, right, there's and or just automate your workflow, there's all sorts of automation engines available. You can work with Airflow or MLflow or Kubernetes, which are open source tooling for it, or you can use just Python and Boto SDK to work with SageMaker pipelines. And the last and not the least, for optimization of machine learning model, you have multitude of services. I have not tried them, so I'm gonna drop them out for today. All right. So that's what is effectively AWS SageMaker's overall life cycle, and that's what AWS SageMaker effectively helps us achieve an end-to-end view of machine learning and data science in general. All right, we'll just take a pause and check if there are any questions from anyone. Okay. Not sure. All right, cool. So we'll continue. Now this is the interface for AWS, right? And we will quickly just scan through all the options. So once you select the service, this is what you're going to get. This is the landing page for AWS SageMaker. You can click on SageMaker Studio, and we'll do that eventually. On the left-hand side, there are services like Ground Truth, which has options to create labeling jobs, label data set, and things like that. Then you will have notebooks where you can create your own notebook instances, and we will take a look at that shortly. Then you have processing jobs where you can submit machine learning processing or any sort of training jobs. Or sorry, this is not machine learning training, this is data processing, this is data pre-processing. Then you have training jobs where you can submit your training jobs, and it has certain classifications for algorithms, training jobs, and hyperparameter tuning. Then you have different interfaces for inferences. Here. And you can package your model, you can change the model format, you can work with standard formats, or you can have endpoints and things like that. Then you will have edge manager, and this is effectively serving your model to end edge devices, which is probably on cameras or IoT devices. The last two services, augmented AI, is something which I'm not familiar with. AWS Marketplace is an interesting place. You can go out and check for any pre-built and packaged offerings that AWS provide. It has pre-built solutions, and we'll take a look at that. Now, we'll just click on AWS SageMaker Studio. And this is what you're going to end up with, right? It allows you two options, and I've already done both the options. One is Canvas and the other is SageMaker. So the first thing we are going to look at is Studio. And what I've simply done is, this is AWS SageMaker Studio. And if there are any data scientists among you, then you would know that this is exactly what you have as a Jupyter interface. This is pretty much a Jupyter interface. So you have all the data out here sitting out there, and this is just a sample notebook which I have taken from the library, from the training library. This is not something that I have created. And the way you can get them is just go to here. You'll have a lot of jumpstart options in the launcher, and you can just select any solution, text models, notebooks, and things like that. What I've selected is how to use Spot training. And the reason is just to explain the thought that cloud is not costly, it can actually be relatively cheaper, right? So going back to the code, we'll just scan through what this notebook has, and I'll quickly talk about the key components and the libraries. Now, what what is done at first is you have to install a library called Boto 3. Now, Boto 3 is the standard Python library. This has been in development for quite some time, but Boto 3 is a library which enables you to work with AWS services over a programming interface. This is also the backend for AWS CLI. So that's what you're installing here effectively. If you have Boto 3, you'll be able to effectively work with all kinds of AWS services. Setup, basic setup. Now we are just going to give SageMaker certain roles and permissions and specify certain parameters where to keep the data, what sort of model to use, what sort of labeling things to have. Now these are just, this could be changed to your needs. It could be any bucket for that matter, excuse me. And then we are going to be loading the data. Now this is a standalone data. I'm not familiar with the data. This is just a simple, straightforward, out of the box regression data, which has been just pulled off the internet. Then you're going to have an XGBoost container. Now what SageMaker provides it are pre-built container images, which already has all the algorithms built into it. You can obviously bring your own container, which is more of a advanced use case, but most of the times the generic algorithms, they are ready to use interfaces inside SageMaker. So all you got to do is just call them and you would get the XGBoost container. Now XGBoost container will be having the XGBoost model and all the parameters and hyperparameters for XGBoost, and this is the description. In order to run that container, it will have an entry point, which is .py file, the role, which is to say what is the IAM role that the container can enjoy, or Azure resource role, can it create other services and things like that, which is what it has this time. Instance type, which is what should be the instance type that this code or this container should spin in order to do the machine learning training. Now, please understand that this is not the machine where you are going to train your model. What is happening is you have a notebook interface, you have externalized an algorithm in the form of a container, and that container itself has the power to spin another infrastructure, which is what is the instance type. And the output from that is going to be put in another S3 bucket. So the train instance type, the type of SageMaker instances for training. This particular mode does not support training on GPU instance, which is fine. This does not allow to get on GPU instances. You can get GPU instances separately. If spot instances are used, the training job can be interrupted. Now, this is one of the key things to understand how to use using spot instances, how to work with spot instances. Now, one of the drawbacks of spot instances is that the jobs could be interrupted, implying that either they could just completely come to a halt or they could just be interrupted for a higher priority job. In such cases, it is a great idea to use some sort of a checkpoint URI. So what will happen is this constructor, the checkpoint constructor, is going to okay, I'll just demonstrate it here. So this is the job, which is a demo XGBoost spot instance, the time and all of that, the training job details. And we have specified a parameter using train spot instance is equals to true, which implies that we are going to rely on spot instances. And you have specified a wait time if spot instance else none. And this is the checkpoint URI, which implies that the waits till that point or any parameters that the model needs to further continue would be saved or would be checkpointed. And that's what enables the cost benefit and reduction. This is the parameter for the entire estimator, how it's going to run, what it's going to do. And then finally, you just call a fit function and submit a job for training, which is the training job. All right. And as you submit it, it's going to start throwing all the logs from the container, and it's going to show you the RMSE values constantly as reducing numbers. And finally, it will tell you that the training seconds was 34 and the billable seconds were 8. And the cost that you ended up saving was 76%. Now, what this means is that if you would have taken a regular instance or a regular EC2 instance versus a spot instance, the cost differential is this high, like 76%. Now, it might be less for larger machines. However, relying on spot instances are a great way to work with machine learning training operations. All right. Alternative design is, while we are talking cost, you could also do reserved instances, which is actually inverse of spot. Spot instances are something that are not dedicated for you. Reserved instances are something that the cloud provider will make sure that you see. The cloud provider is just going to make sure that they are reserved and dedicated for you. All right, let me just move forward. So yeah, now what we have done is you have finished evaluating it and you have gotten certain time parameters for it. So we'll just move forward. Okay, these are just certain parameters for how to enable checkpoints, etc. And eventually how you're going to use the estimator finally for a problem, right? That's what this is doing. Or is it? Oh, it's just showing you again another example of training. Again, in a different example, you have a 78% saving. So this is a good notebook to give you an idea of how to work with AWS SageMaker and work with spot instances. Now, a couple of other features. This is very similar to any other notebook instances. Just a little more intuitive. You can just go here, extremely bottom. You can get a generic notebook created, and it's just gonna give you the usual. You can test this with a kernel. Hello, or just it's just gonna work like any other notebook. Wow. Is it okay? It is not connected. My bad. Okay, so it's gonna work in case it gets connected, but yeah, that's what it allows you to do. Then yeah, close without saving. Cool. Couple of other interesting things about here is that there are certain resources that you can create from the studio itself. You don't need to come out of this notebook instance. You can just work from here itself. So there are no pipelines, but if you start creating data, it will start populating pipelines. So the way this works is it is hooked on behind the scenes to other AWS services. All of these are dedicated ones like model registry, endpoint, compilation jobs, and it's just gonna interface with them, providing you a seamless experience of working with notebook like interface and parallelly being able to deploy your model too. All right, so that's a brief overview on AWS SageMaker. We'll just move forward to AWS SageMaker Canvas. Now, Canvas is a very recent add and a very interesting one. It is one of the most simplest ones which you can probably think about using. Now, the way to get here is, let me close this. You just click on Canvas. So you go back to dashboard, SageMaker. You open the SageMaker domain, and you, instead of launching the studio, you launch a Canvas. Okay. And this is what you're going to get. Now, what I've done before is I have gone to S3 and I have taken the grand old idea of machine learning datasets, Titanic, and I've just uploaded here. So I've just created a public S3 bucket, and the way to go about doing it is you go to S3, just create a bucket, give it a name like random name for testing, and you can either block all public access. I've just left it public because I'm going to delete it after it, and just create the bucket and upload the files. All right, so that's what I've already done, and this is what you see, the train and test.csv file. So now switching back to Canvas, the way Canvas works is there are just two options. You don't have so if you're somebody who gets overwhelmed by a lot of options in AWS, this is probably the simplest I have seen. In fact, I'm almost certain that this is a purchased product and they're just gonna improve the quality of it because it does not even have a AWS look and feel. There are just two options. This is an AutoML tool. So you have data sets. You can import a data set. You can just either upload, and upload needs a little bit more settings. So I've just taken S3. Click on it, click on the S3 bucket, select the train, and just import. It's going to import for you right away. I've already done this. It just takes a few seconds to import the data. Then finally you go to models, and I've created a model just before this. And the way it works is you start here with select. So you select the data, and you can see the data, you can see certain sample rows, and you can understand what this is. So with Titanic dataset, this is the prediction. This is the class that we predict whether the person survived or not. And then there's every other dataset, every other column or feature available, right? Then what it does is it takes you to build where you'll be asked to select the target column. And I've specified survived here, and it's gonna just give you that 61% people died and 38% there. And you can change the model type here although this is already done, so it's not allowing me to change. So I can preview the model that I've built, and it is having this percent like accuracy. Okay, maybe I'll just delete this, and cool. So it's allowing me to create a new version. So I'm gonna go to train, select data set, survived, and I'm gonna preview the model. It takes a little bit of time, and there are a couple of other options, like I can choose accuracy over speed, which is it will take a longer time to train, versus it's just gonna finish very quickly. So this is again giving me 81%, and that's what the previous model that I have had. All right, then you can analyze it. You can analyze the model, how it worked, and what are the details it has, how it's scored. You can check the model metrics. All sorts of information about the model is available. You can see the F1 score, you can see precision, recall, all of that for given that this is a classification problem exists. Let me just show you where that is. No, not in the predict tab. It was here, somewhere here. Yeah, you click on this, and it's gonna give you the positive class and the name, the class, the F1, accuracy, precision, all the parameters, and it will automatically determine based on the type of problem to select the parameter also. You don't need to provide it anything apart from the data and just a couple of clicks. Then you can click on predict, and you need to select the data. So I've just selected the test data, and based on the test, it generated the predictions. So these are the predictions, and these are the probabilities associated with the predictions. So certain predictions are much more highly probable, like with a high degree of confidence that this prediction might hold true, and then the model is also giving you the probability percentage. You can download this, compare it, and it is relatively easy, and as you can see, very straight out of the box. All right, so yeah, that's how this thing works. This is a relatively basic and foundational tool. It is still under development, but it seems to be a very quick and easy way to get started with machine learning. All right, now I'll go back to the SageMaker interface and show a couple of other things. For instance, you can create your notebooks instances. So you go to SageMaker, you click on notebook instances, and you can create a notebook instance. For example, trial notebook. Now this is not like the studio. It's going to give you the traditional interface. You can specify the machine type. You can specify the inferencing machine type where the inferencing has to happen. You can specify certain parameters. You can connect it to a Git repository. You can have certain tags associated with it. You can configure the networking if you want to. I pretty much don't want to do anything right now because it's relatively just out of the box for me. And you can click on create. It gives me a validation error because, okay, notebook instance name. Okay, no spaces are allowed. Now if I click, it's gonna give me another. Yeah, this is what I was trying to get to. So I'm already using and consuming most of the inferencing accelerators at currently. I cannot have this parameter, which is this one, and I think, yeah, now if I remove that, it did not had an inferencing option for me ready. So now it's spinning up a standard Jupyter environment, and once it is up, which it should just take a relatively small amount of time. Yeah, let's just see. So while it spins up, what is happening in the background is an entire Jupyter installation is getting created for you on an EC2 machine. You will be able to work with it like you work with any other Jupyter setup. You can have the traditional interface versus the Jupyter Lab interface, and you can upload files, you can upload your notebooks, and you can access it over the internet if you keep it public, and if you have not made it some sort of under a VPC. So yeah, Let's see if it is up. No, gosh, not yet. It's the status is still for some reason pending. Maybe my just account is it's still not provisioning. So most likely what it is trying to do is it's trying to wait for some other resources to be end because of the free trial. I'm not 100% on that, but this does come up eventually. All right. So I'm gonna stop it just to be safe. Oh, it's not even allowing me to stop because it's still in the state. Nevertheless, so once it is up, that's we'll see if it comes back. What else can we use? So we will go to training and algorithms. Now this is a place where you can find algorithms or you can create. Now once you find algorithms, it's going to take you to AWS Marketplace. And what it will provide you is a lot of ready to use players in the market like Gluon, H2O.ai. And once you click on any of them, right, any of the proprietary algorithms that they have, you can use it to deploy on SageMaker directly. Like these are more or less ready to use solutions out of the box. So yeah, this is an extremely good place for you to get started building business solutions in case you are working in an organization where you do not want to end up learn and understand any of these things. And those stuff would come here under AWS Marketplace subscription. Let's just check if this is up. Interesting, it's still not up. All right, so probably I'll take stop here, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Overall AWS interface and how could you work with SageMaker? How could you use AWS Canvas to kind of build and use machine learning models out of the box? Just train something. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching the stream. If you have liked my content, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.